At my sister's wedding, her husband announced, "Your place is in the trash, loser. I paid for 50% of the wedding, but my seat was given to a cousin from Mexico." I just left silently and took the gift, $10,000 in cash to help me get started, and told my sister about it. The groom's face turned pale, my mother screamed, and my sister begged me, "You misunderstood him. It was a joke." I knew something was off the moment I saw my name wasn't on the seating chart. It was my sister's wedding. Well, half mine financially. I'd paid for 50% of it, the venue, the caterers, the photographer. But I was standing there like an uninvited extra while people I barely recognized, like my dad's second cousin from El Paso, got front row seats next to the family. The groom, Jason, was surrounded by his buddies from college, talking like they owned the place. I walked up to him, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they just forgotten to assign my seat. He looked at me and smirked, then leaned in and said, not quietly, "Your place isn't a trash, loser." No one laughed. It wasn't a joke. I could see it on their faces. My uncle awkwardly turned away and one of the bridesmaids bit her lip and stared at the floor. My mother didn't say a word. My dad just adjusted his tie like he hadn't heard a thing. My sister, she was busy adjusting her dress, pretending she hadn't heard it either. So I left. I walked straight out the back gate of the vineyard, past the parking lot, and into the hills beyond. I didn't make a scene. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look back. But I did take the box I brought with me, a gift, $10,000 in cash. I'd been saving it to start fresh. Maybe finally get out of my parents' basement. Maybe enroll in a short course to finish what I'd started years ago before things went south financially. But then I thought, no, I'll give it to her. A real wedding gift, a gesture, a kind one. But not anymore. Instead, I went home, took the box into the garage, opened the lid, stared at the bills for a while, then drove back to the venue and waited until they were done cutting the cake. I didn't go inside. I texted my sister to come out. She looked surprised to see me, but smiled like nothing had happened. I handed her the empty gift box and said, "You were supposed to get something special today, but I changed my mind." She blinked. What do you mean? 10 grand. That's what it was. Cash. Jason walked out right then, laughing about something, but when he saw me, he went silent. My mom came out too, already holding her phone like she thought I was going to cause a scene. She started asking questions, but I ignored her. My sister frowned. "Why would you do that? You let him talk to me like that. After I paid half your wedding." Jason tried to wave it off. "You misunderstood. Man, it was just a joke." I didn't answer, just turned to leave. But then I heard my mother scream, and I mean scream. I glanced back and saw her looking at my sister, pointing at the empty box at Jason. She looked like someone had just stolen her lottery ticket. My dad had finally come outside too, but he didn't say anything. He never does when it matters. My sister followed me to the parking lot, stumbling in her heels. "Tom, wait. You misunderstood him. It was a joke. Please." But I was already in my car. I didn't speed off. I drove away slow, steady, like I wasn't angry. I wasn't. I was done. And I had only just started. Part 2. The debt no one remembered expanded. The day after the wedding, I stayed in bed longer than usual. I wasn't tired. I just didn't want to see the texts I knew were waiting. When I finally checked my phone, I wasn't disappointed. 17 messages. The first was from my mother. "Tom, I just don't understand why you would do that to your sister on the most important day of her life. You embarrassed her in front of everyone. Do you have any idea how that looked?" The rest were variations of the same lecture about how weddings are about love, about family, about forgiveness. Not one of them mentioned what Jason said. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Jason's message came next. Just one line. "You're lucky she still wants to talk to you after what you pulled." The entitlement was surreal, but I wasn't surprised. By noon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I didn't answer, but the voicemail came in fast. It was my sister. "Tom, I don't know what you think you heard, but Jason was just messing around. He's always like that. You know that. And that money. Why would you even bring that up?" Who gives cash like that and then takes it back? I didn't ask you to do that. I played it twice. Not once did she say sorry. So I opened my laptop. I've always kept track of things. I learned the hard way that no one remembers what you did for them unless you show them. I had everything. Copies of every invoice, email confirmations from the venue, payment breakdowns, even the wire transfer I sent to the florist when she couldn't get approved for the final deposit. Total cost of the wedding, $36,420. My contribution, $18,200. My parents, $12,000. My sister, $6,220. That's what her new life cost me. And she let her husband humiliate me like I was the help who overstayed his welcome. Then I remembered the car. 2 years ago, when she got laid off from that warehouse job and couldn't make it to interviews, I gave her my old Civic and bought myself a used truck. I told her it was temporary. She said she'd pay me back once she got back on her feet. That never happened, but she drove that car like it was hers. Never even thanked me after she got promoted last year. Title was still in my name. I checked just to be sure. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I called the towing company. The guy on the line was Jill, asked where the car was, what the situation was. I told him the address of my sister's apartment and that I had the title and spare key. He said, "You want it back at your place?" "No, I want it out of sight. Just hold on to it. I'll pick it up later." Around 4 o'clock, my phone lit up with a call from my sister. I ignored it. She called again, then again. By the 6th time, she left a voicemail. "Tom, what the hell? Did you seriously tow my car? I was at the grocery store. Jason had to come get me. This isn't okay. You're acting crazy. You gave it to me. You can't just steal it back." I sat in silence listening to it. She wasn't mad about what Jason said. She wasn't mad about the money. She was mad that something was finally taken from her. Then came the text from Jason. "Dude, grow up. You're ruining her life over a joke. Don't ever contact us again if you can't act like an adult." That evening, my dad showed up. Didn't call ahead. Just parked outside and knocked. I could see him through the window, pacing slightly like he didn't even want to be there. I opened the door and didn't say a word. He walked in like it was still his house. Looked around like he was seeing it for the first time. "You need to bring that car back," he said. "She can Uber." He didn't like that. He rubbed his jaw and gave me the kind of look you give a dog that peed on the rug. "You gave it to her?" "No, I loaned it to her. There's a difference." He sighed like he had a headache and pointed to the coffee table where the wedding folder was still open. "What is this supposed to be?" "This is what I paid. Everything down to the last dollar." He flipped through it but didn't read anything. Just stared at it like it was offensive. "You're punishing her for what Jason said." "No, I'm punishing her for staying silent." He didn't argue. He just looked at me like I'd failed some unwritten test. Then he said something I won't forget. "You're acting like some stranger. This isn't how family behaves." That part made me laugh because when I dropped out of college after my financial aid got screwed and no one offered to help, not even with a couch to sleep on, I didn't see much family behavior. Then he left without another word. And that was when I realized I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. For once, they were the ones scrambling. And I wasn't done yet. 2 days passed with radio silence from me, and it drove them insane. Jason posted some cryptic garbage on his Instagram story about snakes in the grass and jealous people trying to ruin happiness. My sister liked it and added a photo of them smiling on the beach with the caption "Cutting out toxicity one wave at a time." I don't know who they thought they were fooling. That evening, my mom called again. I didn't answer, but this time her voicemail was calm, almost rehearsed. "Tom, honey, I think everyone's emotions were high. We shouldn't let this small misunderstanding ruin the family. Maybe we can all sit down this weekend and talk." "Okay. I made your favorite, that blueberry cobbler. It would have been convincing if I didn't know how she operates." She wanted something. Then I got a text from my sister. No apology, no acknowledgement of what happened. Just this: "Can we please work this out before Jason's parents find out? They're asking questions." That made me laugh. They weren't sorry. They were just embarrassed, worried about optics. The cash I didn't give them was now a hole in their wedding budget. And they probably told Jason's parents it came from generous family support. Must be awkward when that support drives away with your only car. I waited until the weekend. Then I sent a message in the family group chat. First time I said anything since the wedding. Since it seems like we're pretending things didn't happen, here's what I'm doing. I've decided to recover the $8,000 that wasn't paid back from the wedding fund. As the car is legally mine, it covers that value. I'm selling it. If anyone has a problem with that, we can settle it in small claims court. They didn't expect me to go formal. My dad left the group chat. My mom didn't say anything. My sister called within 10 seconds. I answered this time. Tom, you can't be serious. That car is my only way to get to work. I already lost 2 shifts because of you. You can take the bus. You know how dangerous the bus is where I live. So get a lift. Jason's got that new job, right? He doesn't make that kind of money. You should have thought of that before spending 36 grand on a wedding. She went silent for a while. Then quietly, she said, I didn't think you'd ever turn on me like this. And I told her the truth. When I couldn't make rent 3 years ago, you told me to just get a second job. When I was selling my stuff on Craigslist to stay in school, you sent me memes about grinding harder. You turned on me a long time ago. I just never said it out loud. I hung up. Next morning, Jason showed up at my place. Didn't knock. Just started banging on the front door like a cop raid. I let him knock. Then I called the non-emergency line and reported a disturbance. The cop who showed up was polite, saw Jason yelling from the curb, and asked him to leave. No drama, just paperwork. But I watched from the window while Jason was forced into his car like a sulking teenager. Later that week, I sold the Civic, got $8,600 for it. Clean title, low miles, used the cash to finally pay off my last bit of credit card debt, and buy a decent laptop to replace my dying one. My parents didn't speak to me after that. My mom tried once, messaging that I'd gone too far, but I ignored her. My dad, nothing, just silence, which was the most consistent thing he ever offered. I heard from a cousin that Jason and my sister started fighting over money. Apparently, her hours got cut at work, and Jason had put a few charges on a credit card they were trying to pay off before the honeymoon. And me, I was finally sleeping peacefully. But I wasn't finished because revenge doesn't need yelling. Sometimes it's just being the one person who stops playing along. The Civic sale changed everything. Not just because of the money, but because it made one thing clear. They weren't untouchable. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up and taken something. And no one could stop me. Not them, not Jason, not the family court of public opinion they all like to sit on. A week passed, then another silence. No texts, no calls, no dramatic voicemails. Just the occasional Instagram story from my sister showing her pretending everything was great. Photos of brunch, a blurry concert, a throwback to her bachelorette party with the caption, "Wouldn't change a thing." But behind that, I knew things weren't smooth. I had eyes. Turns out, when you've been the family errand boy for years, you pick up habits like remembering login credentials. I never gave up admin access to the shared family Google Drive. The one I set up years ago to organize everyone's files, photos, and tax records. Guess where they uploaded wedding expenses, the honeymoon plans, even copies of their loan approvals for the venue. I didn't touch anything, didn't change a word, but I read they maxed out a personal line of credit for the wedding. Jason had taken out a loan to cover what he thought my $10,000 gift would finish. When I pulled the money, they defaulted on the honeymoon down payment. They booked flights to Santorini. Non-refundable. The resort canceled their reservation after 2 failed payments. The cherry on top, my sister's job hours weren't just cut. She was put on probation. Apparently, someone at work flagged her for using company time to organize her wedding. And then my mom called. Not to apologize, not to acknowledge what had happened. She wanted a favor. Your father and I are helping your sister cover some of the wedding debt. Just until things get better. Could you maybe? She hesitated, trying to find a polite word for bail them out. Chip in. Took me a full minute to respond. I think she mistook the silence for consideration. You want me to pay for more of a wedding I wasn't welcome at? It wasn't like that. Do you remember what Jason said to me? He was just stressed, and you know how men get. No, I want you to say it out loud right now. She couldn't. She just said, "This isn't who you are, Tom." And she was right. It wasn't who I was before. I would have caved. I would have taken out a loan, dipped into savings, told myself that family means sacrifice. But now I was watching them squirm and I liked it. "I'm not giving you a cent," I said. "In fact, I want the $500 back I paid for your rehearsal dinner. You can transfer it by Friday." She hung up. That weekend, my cousin Sarah, one of the few people in the family who wasn't two-faced, invited me over for drinks. She told me my sister had been calling everyone, painting me as some unhinged, bitter villain who'd stolen her car and sabotaged her marriage. But then she showed me the texts, screenshots from my sister, begging her to lend money. Same with another cousin. She was working her way through the family, pretending she was the victim of a financial betrayal. Sarah just said she's unraveling. Jason started sleeping at his brother's place half the week. Their marriage is a mess. And I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. I left early that night, drove home with the windows down. No music, just the sound of the wind. Because sometimes the best kind of revenge is quiet. And right now, they were all making enough noise for the both of us. I wasn't planning on seeing any of them again. I figured they'd spiral on their own, and I'd just keep watching from a distance. But then something happened I didn't expect. My parents showed up at my job. It was a Tuesday morning. I picked up a contract gig at a local logistics company, just enough to keep me afloat while I worked on launching my own thing, a business I'd been quietly building for months. I rented a tiny space behind an auto repair shop where I'd started offering PC builds, parts sourcing, even a little consulting. Word was getting around. My boss came into the back room with a weird look on his face. "There's an older couple out front asking for you. They said they're your parents." I went out and there they were. My dad in his church shoes like he thought this was a court hearing and my mom holding a manila folder like it was evidence. I stepped outside with them. My dad didn't waste time. "We're going to refinance the house to help your sister." That didn't make sense at first. Then I realized they meant my childhood home. The one my grandfather built. The one they swore they'd never touch. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if it goes through," my mom cut in, "we need to move some things around with a family trust. Your name is still listed on it." Now I understood. They didn't want to tell me. They needed my signature. "So, you want me to sign away my share of the house so you can bail her out?" "It's just paperwork, Tom. You don't even live there." I looked at the folder. It wasn't even in a proper envelope. They thought this would take 5 minutes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get dramatic. I just asked one question. If I'd come to you a year ago, asked for help to get back into college, would you have refinanced the house for me? Either of them answered. My mom just kept fidgeting with the folder. I thought so. I walked back inside and told my boss to tell them I wasn't available if they ever came back. That night, my phone blew up. Jason again. But this time, it wasn't insults, it was threats. He'd found out I'd accessed the Google Drive. He accused me of hacking into their private files. Said he'd contacted a lawyer, claimed I manipulated financial documents to sabotage their honeymoon bookings. I laughed reading it. The man could barely spell the word lawsuit, but then he crossed the line. He said he was going to show up at my work, that he'd make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. So I did something I hadn't done yet. I called in a favor. Remember that business I was building? One of my first clients was a retired cybersecurity guy, rail paranoid type, had a side hobby tracking scammers online. I helped him set up some servers. He owed me. I told him what Jason said and asked if he could help me understand what kind of dirt is on the Groom. A day later, I had Jason's entire digital footprint. Forums, Reddit comments, old LinkedIn profiles he forgot to update. He'd claimed to have a master's in business. He didn't even finish his associates. Worse, he'd used his fake degree to land his current job. I sat on that information for 2 weeks. Didn't tell anyone. Just saved it because revenge isn't about speed. It's about timing. Then, without warning, my sister texted me. One word, please. I didn't respond. Just waited. For hours later, my mom texted me the same word. I called Sarah and asked what was going on. Jason got fired. Someone sent an anonymous tip to HR about his fake degree. I didn't say a word. She went on. They're freaking out. Your sister said if they can't make rent by the end of the month, they'll have to move in with your parents. Your mom is losing it. So, they were all about to collapse in on each other, trying to stay afloat in a sinking boat they lit on fire themselves. I'd been patient. I'd been quiet. But now I knew how to end it. And I still had one more thing they didn't know about. Something that would make everything permanent. But that comes next. I didn't send that letter out of rage. I wasn't trying to make a point anymore. I'd already won. But something in me needed to close it all off, seal it shut like a vault, and walk away for good. So I drafted it carefully. No emotional fluff, just straight facts. It opened with a formal withdrawal from the family trust. My name scrubbed from every document, no inheritance, no claim to the house, no stake in anything they leave behind. I included a notarized affidavit stating I had no interest in any future shared family property, income, or obligation. And then stapled behind that, I included my own financial summary of the past 5 years, my payments, loans, the $18,200 I put into the wedding, the Civic's resale value, and my sister's unpaid debts. The math was undeniable. They were the ones who had taken. I had simply adjusted the balance. At the bottom, I didn't write a closing line like sincerely or with regret. Just you chose who you wanted as family. I'm choosing who I want as mine. I mailed 3 copies. One to my parents, one to my sister, one to their lawyer who I'd found mentioned in one of the wedding vendor contracts. They'd used him for a payment dispute. I wanted it all legal, traceable, permanent, and then I disappeared. I blocked their numbers, changed my email, got a new phone plan. I even moved out of state a few weeks later when a business opportunity I'd quietly been building turned into something real. A tech refurb company in Portland needed someone to run operations for their expansion. I'd already been freelancing for them, doing parts sourcing and logistics for my garage, and they offered me a full-time role in equity. I took it without hesitation, loaded what I needed into a rented van, and drove north. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not even Sarah. She messaged me a week later. You alive? I sent her a photo of a foggy bridge and a good cup of coffee. Alive? Better than ever. That was it. Back home, everything continued to unravel. Sarah filled me in over time. Jason applied for another job using the same fake degree and got blacklisted when someone sent his former employer's HR statement along with the application. They couldn't make rent anywhere on their own. So my sister had to move into her childhood bedroom and Jason was crashing at a friend's place. Eventually, my parents did refinance the house. That money was supposed to help them through retirement. Instead, it went toward paying off Jason's credit cards and half of the wedding loan. It didn't fix anything. My dad started working nights again, part-time security at a warehouse. My mom, who once lectured me about responsibility, took out a short-term personal loan with 28% interest. Sarah said she cried about it at Thanksgiving while pretending to be thankful for second chances. But I didn't feel guilty because when I was clawing my way through life, trying to stay in school, trying to stay housed, they told me to be a man. Figure it out. Stop relying on people. I did exactly that. Only now it was them scraping, begging, panicking, and no one was coming to save them. Least of all me. I didn't cut them off to punish them. I cut them off because I didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. The last message I ever got from my sister came 6 months later. A long, teary paragraph about how families fight, but they always find their way back, and how Jason was working on himself and how she missed the old days. I read it once, deleted it, and that was it. You can't drown people and expect them to send you a life raft just because you're finally sinking too. They had their chance. I gave more than I ever should have. Now I'm just watching the water get quiet.